All right, so now we're going to do an algebraic example of piecewise functions. And basically a piecewise function is a function that's defined in pieces. So here's the example you can copy down in your notes. So we're going to have f of x, and this time we're going to put this big curly bracket, and we're going to give a bunch of different rules. And so my first rule is f of x equals negative x, but I'm only going to use that if x is less than negative 3. Sometimes you'll see the word if, sometimes they'll just put a comma, and that's sort of implied that that's when you use that rule. The next rule is x squared. I'm going to use that if x is between negative 3 and 2. Right? Notice this one has an equal bar, this one doesn't. Next one is y is 2, and that is true if x is 2. Right? So 2 and 2. And then 2x minus 3 is my last rule, and I'll use that when x is greater than 2. And so there's the rule. Get that copied down. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so we can see the rule and the graph. And now I'm going to set up my axes. And so there's sort of 4 rules here, but it's just one function, right? So this one function is defined in pieces. And so there's a few ways to do this, a few ways to think about it. And so after you do a few practice problems, hopefully you'll sort of see what way is most comfortable for you. And so think about this line, right? Y equals negative x. That's a line. It has a y-intercept of 0, and it has a slope of negative 1. So you can sort of imagine, notice I'm not drawing it, but you can sort of imagine that line going here, right? Not going to use that whole line, though. I'm just going to use that line when x is negative 3. So what I like to do is go back to negative 3, and then I say, okay, at negative 3, where would this line be? Well, when I plug negative 3 into here, negative 3 is positive 3. So I'm going to go up here and put a dot, but as you maybe guessed, I'm going to put an open circle because I use this line up to, but not including that point. Right? Now, what does that line look like? It has a slope of negative 1. And so it's tempting to say, oh, I'm going down. But remember, we always read from left to right. And so a slope of negative 1 actually looks like that. Right? And so you could double check, go over here to negative 5. Right? What happens when you plug in negative 5? You're supposed to get positive 5. And that's what I do. Right? So I'm using that line. If I had continued it, it would have gone all the way down through the origin. Right? Sometimes what people do, especially when they get started, is they'll draw that whole line, and then they'll erase the part they don't want. So I draw the whole line and then erase the part that's not less than negative 3. What's this next one? The next one is a parabola, right? And so we know what a parabola, it's opening up. It has the vertex at the origin. But again, I'm not going to use that. Where am I going to start? I'm going to start at negative 3. Well, when I square negative 3, of course, I get positive 9. Let's see if I left myself enough room here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, barely. Putting a closed circle there because that negative 3 had an equal bar under its inequality sign. Then I'm going to draw the parabola. So it's going down. It's heading towards a vertex of 0. It's got 1, 1, negative 2, 4. So I get this U shape. And I'm going to continue on the right side, but I have to be careful. I have to stop when I get to x equals 2. And of course, 2 squared is 4. So I'm heading towards this one. And notice I put an open circle there, and that circle's at 2, 4. What's the next one? The next one is a single dot. It's telling me that when x is 2, y is 2. And so I just go to 2, 2, put a dot, right? Closed circle. Okay. What's the last one? Well, the last one is a line. It would have a y-intercept of negative 3 and a slope of 2, and so it would look sort of like this, right? Sort of like this. But I'm not going to use the whole thing. I'm just going to start using it at 2. And so where exactly do I start? Well, when I plug 2 into here, 2 times 2 is 4, minus 3 is 1. And so this one gets an open circle, and it's going to head out of here with a slope of 2. And so I get this. And so here is my piecewise function, right? It's a line, parabola, a dot, and another line, right? So it's defined in pieces. Notice it is definitely still a function. This is always important. Make sure it passes that vertical line test. You can't have any x value that has more than one y value. And this looks pretty good, right? My pen, when I'm holding it vertically, is only going to hit each graph once, right? I think that's it. you're going to have a chance to talk about this in your groups in just a second. If you have questions, talk to one of your group members. Otherwise, you'll have one to try in your groups.